Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's 2023 TCS New York City Marathon Expert Training Panel Series. We are here for the fourth of a 5-part series. Welcome to those who are here on site and all those who are joining us live, whether that is through our Facebook page or our YouTube page. Let's get some logistical information out of the way before we get started. For those who are here in person, just want to let you know that I don't know what it's called, but I think it's a live moss wall behind us. It was serviced today, so please just avoid touching it for those who are here in person. And for any folks here who may need an assistive listening system, if you did not request one but you still need one, we do have them available. You can see my colleagues at the bib pickup tables to my right. For anybody that needs to use a restroom, we do have gender neutral and accessible restrooms right behind us around the corner. And closed captioning will be provided on the video that goes up on YouTube. Please just note that it is an auto-generated closed captioning, so it is not 100% accurate. As I mentioned, today's panel is being live streamed on our New York Roadrunners YouTube page, as well as the New York Roadrunners Facebook page. Welcome again to those folks who are joining us. Also want to let you folks know that we'll chit-chat for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have about 15-20 minutes for Q&A. We do have Coach Steve monitoring the live stream, so feel free to add any questions in there throughout the panel. For the folks here in person, we will get your questions first, because you're here in person. So when we get to Q&A, make sure you have your questions ready. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen me here before, you're probably wondering who I am. My name is Saman Wakad, summon like I summon you. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Social Responsibility Specialist at New York Roadrunners. And for folks joining us in person, or those on the live stream, or those watching the recordings, we do want to mention some physical descriptions, just to be inclusive. So I am a South Asian woman. I am wearing a navy blue fleece with the New Balance and New York Roadrunners logos on the front. I'm also wearing a headscarf that is a dark blue color and glasses as well. So let us move on to our wonderful panelists. Right next to me is Coach Ben, as many know him. Ben Delaney is a New York Roadrunners coach. He is an RRCA Level 1, Lydiard Level 2, and USATF Certified Running Coach. He has been coaching runners for more than 15 years. He believes that while runners will always be time-focused, he's a firm believer of running naked. Hold on. That means without a watch. And, also running by effort. He has completed the TCS New York City Marathon multiple times and will be running this race this year as well.
Everyone knows that now. I am Coach Ben. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I am running the marathon this year, so please wish me well. I am a white male with some hair on top of my head and a lot of hair on my face. I'm wearing this awesome green pullover. You can buy it up at our New Balance store or online, right? It's good stuff, right? But thank you so much for joining tonight.
Thank you so much, Coach Ben. And to Coach Ben's left, we have Atiya Brown. Atiya Brown is a New Balance Trackster. Atiya is a certified yoga instructor and sound healing practitioner from New York City. Atiya has a decade of experience in the athletic apparel industry. As the New York City New Balance field marketing rep, she's deeply involved in the running community, merging her passion for fitness and holistic wellness. Atiya's unique expertise bridges the gap between athleticism and well-being, making her a standout figure in her field.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Just for those watching and viewing, I'm Atiya. I'm a black female. I have blonde locks, and I'm wearing a black New Balance sweatsuit that says Conversations Among Us, which is a collab with Joe Freshgoods.
Thank you very much, Atiya. And last but not least, to Atiya's left, we have Jeanne Mack. Jeanne is a Strava rep. She's a senior copywriter at Strava, 2020 Olympic Trials qualifier in the marathon. Jeanne lives in Brooklyn, New York. She informed me a little earlier that she has run 5 marathons, including the TCS New York City Marathon in 2017.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Jeanne, everyone. My pronouns are she, her, and I will also give a physical description of myself real quick. I'm a white woman with short brown hair, wearing a bright orange sweatshirt that says Strava on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So before we get started, for the folks that are here in person, with a show of hands, let's see how many of you are running the New York City Marathon for the first time. Awesome. Okay, vast majority. And the rest of you are running, have you run it before? Is this your first marathon? Nah. Okay, awesome. So there's some pros here in the audience as well. Okay, so let's start with the most important thing. Does anybody here know how many weeks there are until the marathon? 3 weeks? 3 weeks. 3 weeks, everybody.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
In case you didn't know.
Realize that.
So we're 3 weeks out from the 2023 TCS New York City Marathon. I want to ask our panelists, what do you all think is the most important thing a runner should be thinking about right now to prepare? I'm going to start with Coach Ben. Where should runners be in terms of mileage and training at this moment?
Yeah, you're 3 weeks out, so you're probably wondering, when's the marathon? When can I stop having to run every single day, and when can I start to taper? All of my first-time marathoners are probably maybe a little bit more tired because the volume has built up. This is like that last hard week. You probably had a couple of harder workouts this week. You may have your longest long run coming up on Saturday or Sunday. As you begin after that, it gets a little bit easier. Your volume will decrease. But yeah, right now this is like the last hard week before you can kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit, begin to recover, repair, and get to hopefully the start line of the TCS New York City Marathon healthy, because that's the ultimate goal. But again, right now is like that last little bit. So take care of yourselves. I'm guessing most people are probably hitting mileage they've never done before at this point. It's probably a bit more than you've done, especially my first timers are like, I've never run this many miles in a week, let alone in one time. So always think about the goals that you've achieved and the goals that you will achieve. Be proud of what you've done. Don't just discount it. It's amazing what you're doing. So don't just be like, okay, I did it. No, you're doing amazing things. You're stronger than you think you are, and use that as you go into these last few things, and then get ready for race day.
Thank you, Coach Ben. So there's some hope there. One more tough week, and then we're ready for the marathon, right? So moving on to Atia, how should runners be thinking about their gear in terms of their final weeks of training? Wonderful question is now a good time to try new shoes or clothes?
Well, dum. So 3 weeks out is like a super delicate time. So you really want to make sure whatever you have been doing is really what you want to stick to. Changing your shoes right now would be very risky, just because if you're going to be wearing new shoes, you should have probably started at the top of this week, not the end of this week, because you want to give yourself enough time to break them in. But again, that's like a beware that you may run into difficulties with those new shoes if you did not train with them for a long time. Another thing is your gear. Whatever you've been using already, stick with that. Sweat-wicking materials are going to be your best bet to keep you cool and dry. However, again, some people try to get fancy the day of marathon and get all the new gear at Expo, and then they end up throwing it off on the side of the the route, and it's gone. And they're like, but I just spent, just stick with things that you know that you can take off, that you may not mind donating. There are going to be receptacles there that are going to take care of donating the items that you will not need throughout the whole entire race. But just know, if you have great shoes and you've been wearing them already, go for that. If you want to change your shoes, if you want to update, maybe get the same shoe, but you have to start like today. Don't wait until Sunday to get new shoes. It's going to be too late.
So just stick to your routine. Stick to the gear that you have. Unless you want to donate brand new gear, we'll take it and we'll donate to our partners. Moving on to Jeanne. So as runners start to plan for November 5th, how can a runner's Strava data help them plan what their marathon day strategy will be?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's going to be pretty specific to if you have a Strava account. So I just want to quickly use this as a moment to plug getting a Strava account. Joining Strava, if you're not already on it, it's an app to track your training, any kind of activity you want, running, cycling, hiking, walking, anyways. If you are on Strava, I think it kind of echoes Coach Ben's answer here, but one of my favorite tools to use on Strava as I'm training for a marathon is a feature called the training log. It's It's a subscription feature, and what it is a really great bird's eye view of all the training that you've put in your marathon build so far. It's a calendar view, so you can see each day what you did in a really zoomed out way, and then you can zoom in on that day and get a ton of granular detail about that activity and see what your pace was for that long run or workout or whatever it was, and then kind of correlate that with how your heart rate looked, what heart rate zones you were in, and I think those pieces of data can really help you kind of figure out what a realistic goal marathon pace would look like for you. If you felt really great on your 18, 16 miler and you were hitting, I don't know, I'm just going to say 7-minute pace or whatever it was, maybe that's a really exciting goal for you to kind of tackle, with the caveat that you might want to be thinking about negative splitting, which is always a very nice thing to do in a marathon. It just makes it feel more enjoyable when you're out there. So you're probably going to want to make sure you're starting out a little bit more conservative than the goal pace that you're putting together based on the data points there. I think those are the main takeaways. I would use the training log to kind of spark in my head, and again, just feeling that confidence to be able to see all of the weeks of training you've put in and realize I can do this, get a little confident. And I'll give you one last data point. We have a ton of data on Strava, which is really cool, and so I think it's nice to know the average Strava runner training for the New York City Marathon usually runs about 20 miles a week at the beginning of their training and peaks around 40 miles a week. So you might be hitting around 40 miles, or you might not.
The faces in the crowd are like,
you might
what?
not.
What?
And if you're not, that's fine. Let it wash over you. Don't put any salt into this. But yeah, if you're like, okay, cool, I'm around there, then I think you can take confidence from it. But if you're not, it's fine. Moving on.
Skip over that part of the recording. Jeanne, just wanted to ask, because you mentioned negative splitting, for any folks who may not know, can you just share what that is?
Yeah, of course. Negative splitting is just where you run the first half of the marathon, so the first 13.1 miles, slower than your second half. So you're going to want to go out a little slower so that you're feeling really good by the end and can finish faster and stronger in the second half.
I'm sure that's an awesome strategy, especially when it's very, very warm. Hopefully it's not that this year. So now that we have talked about what the most important thing is, we're going to focus on things that folks can control. So in training and in racing, coaches and experts will talk about focusing on things that can be controlled. So we want to spend a little bit of time on that. Jeanne, we'll actually start with you this time. Talk to us about being in control during the race. How does that look from a numbers perspective, and how does that look in regards to effort?
Yeah, this is a good question. Sorry, my voice is just on repeat now, but I think of it in two ways: the numbers and the effort. I think the numbers are a really great way to get concrete data about how much you're in control or not, and then there are a few touch points you can use to kind of check in with yourself in real time about the effort. So to focus first on kind of the techie data points, I think the numbers that you're going to want to really pay attention to are mostly around your heart rate. This is something you can even look at during the race. If you're wearing a device like a watch, a GPS watch, that usually will have heart rate data in there. And if you have Strava activities already logged, you can kind of go back and check out your heart rate zone to see what is moderate for you. Like usually there is going to be a breakdown of a range of beats per minute, and that will be like your moderate range, and then you'll also have a harder range, a threshold, a tempo. So you're going to want to stay in the moderate range to keep that effort really controlled. And this is a time where you can start playing around with that with easy runs if you don't know about your heart rate zones yet. Just kind of make sure you can sustain a conversation and then check out what your heart rate looks like while you're doing that, while running. And then, make sure during the race that you're looking down and seeing that moderate zone instead of spiking up really high really early on in the race. That's going to be an indicator that the effort is not under control, and you want to keep it under control definitely for the first 13, 16, 20 miles. And then, just a few quick notes about what the effort might feel like. I think, a way you can kind of touch base during the race is, can you talk without completely gasping for air? Does it feel reasonable to kind of like swerve out of your way to grab some water and hold your arm out to grab a gel or any fuel? Or is that feeling like a big lift? If it's a big lift, just, take it down a notch. I think, you really want to feel like even though what you're doing is so intense and incredible, in the moment by moment, especially early on in the race, it should feel kind of slightly easy. Maybe not easy, but it should feel like you can kind of glide along a little bit.
Glide along with 50,000 other folks in New York City. Great times, great times. Atia, we know that runners shouldn't try new shoes on race day. I hope we know that by now. But are there things you'd consider okay to change based on things we can't control? For example, weather.
Yes, I would say a few of my suggestions would be paying attention to the forecast, and clothing would definitely be one that you would want to consider. We're talking about potential rain. We're talking about wind. Those things can definitely affect how you perform. So if you are not used to wearing maybe a light layer for rain, maybe in the next couple of weeks, if it does rain, go and try to get out there with something that you would potentially want to wear if it does rain. We're going to think about something that is sweat wicking, again, going to allow you to dry fast, but we're also going to talk about ventilation, because if you have on a rain jacket that's fully waterproof, you're going to lock in all that heat. Not a good idea. We're also going to talk about hydration, so make sure you fuel up. So if it's going to be hotter, you want to make sure beforehand you're getting enough electrolytes. Drink lots of water, coconut water, whatever your preference is. And then nutrition, if you're taking supplements, go ahead and just maintain what you've been doing. Sun protection, sunscreen, potentially, if that's something that you'd like to do, put it on. If you're someone that likes to wear a hat, do that, a visor, maybe even sunglasses, just something to consider. Another would be footwear, of course, but we're not going to change anything. But in the case that weather takes a turn, because sometimes that does happen, we don't know what to prepare for. It may say that it's going to be one way, and then you show up and you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I expected. But in the chance of it being heavy rain, because New York City has seen lots of that lately, we know. Flooding has been bad. But getting something or having an alternative that has a little bit more grip, right? So you just want to think about those things. I would say those 4 are your keys. So your clothing, think about your hydration, your nutrition, think about sun protection, and then that last one is kind of like risky again, your footwear. But yeah, those 4.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Coach Ben, how do you prepare your athletes for things that are out of their control on race day? And I'm talking about stuff other than food. Coach Ben loves food.
I do love food. I had Shake Shack for lunch today. It was fantastic.
That's
it was
awesome.
That's what coaches do. We don't follow our own advice.
Was that in your control or out of your control?
That was 100% in my control, and those fries were fantastic, and that double shack burger. But I digress, folks. No, I get it. It's all things that we can't control because you work so hard to get to the start line, and then things we can't control, like the weather. Anybody who ran this race last year will tell you that was like, why? I made phone calls to Mother Nature, and she did not take my call. I was like, please, my runners need you today, and it didn't happen. So you have to put your faith in what you've done, because that's all you have. The race day will be what the race day is. But if you get yourself at least to the start line prepared to run your race, that's all you can really ask for. Everything else is just the day is going to be what it is, and so you have to really put faith and trust into that. So the things that we can't control is what probably stresses us out the most. So like we talked about here, what can you control to put those things at bed, and then just let the day come to you, because at the end of the day, it's like we've done all the work to get there. Enjoy the moments when you're going through. Don't get tied up. There will be rough patches in the race. I think we all talked about that. Especially if you go out too fast, you're going to have a rough patch somewhere down the road. But you can control that. But lean into the training. How many of you had a bad training run? Well, none of you? Okay, I was like, wow, I like this group. They were using Strava, like, we crushed it. Lean into that, because you may face that out there. You can't control what happens out there on race day, but I remember this run I did back when it was really hot in July or August or whatever the case is. Lean into those things when something pops up that you're not ready for. Maybe a side stitch will come aboard. Maybe the gel that you've always taken today is just not kind of hitting the right way. All those things. And we always say nothing new on race day. We can't stress it enough, especially when you're on the course. My first marathon, I committed that cardinal sin. Man, that orange slice, it looked so good. And I took it, 3 miles later, things did not go well. It did not go well for me, folks. But again, you have to control what you can. Everything else is outside of that. Just focus on yourself in that moment, because there's, again, 50,000 people are going to be out there. Focus on you and what you can do to your best of your ability, because you've worked so hard. How many miles have you put in to get to that moment? That's what you have. Everything else is just going to happen on the day, and take it all in. I mean, a lot of people, if it's your first time, this city will come out and cheer for you regardless if it's 75 or 45. I mean, one of the questions we get from people that come up from Florida and Georgia, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be 52. How much clothing should I wear? And we're all like, 52? I'll be in a singlet and shorts, bro. It's not that cold. But for them, that's just like, but that's what everyone has to approach it differently and what they can control. So you're going to warm up out there on the run. So, just breathe and take it all in. I mean, it's stressful. Let's be realistic. You worked hard. So, put your mind at ease as best that you can. Because again, those stress points will raise your heart rate a little bit, and that will take energy away that you will want so badly on First Avenue, in the Bronx, Fifth Avenue, Central Park, when you have that strong finish.
Okay, so the advice is enjoy the moment as you're going through it. Our coaches do love to give life advice as well up here.
That's all we do, really.
So we've talked about the most important thing. We've talked about things we can focus on that can be controlled by you. Let's talk about race day. Anybody remember what the race day is? When is it? When is race?
5th.
November 5th. Yeah. Everybody's on the same page here, right? November 5th? Okay, awesome. Awesome. So race day, folks, is quickly approaching, as we said. We're going to spend some time talking about November 5th and how runners can prepare even better. Atia, we'll start with you this time. So I know we all know that, well, actually, we don't know. I need to read my question.
You might know.
So we mentioned weather, and none of us know what the weather is going to be like. So for any of you who were around last year for the marathon, you don't want that kind of weather. Anybody who was at the Chicago Marathon recently, you kind of do want that kind of weather. So for race day, when runners are thinking of what to wear, what should they be thinking about?
Okay, so you definitely want to be thinking about your layering, considering what you are paying attention to on the forecast, right? You want to know that a layer or two might be good for you in the beginning, but it will likely be gone by the end of your race. You want to think about checking the wind factor. We talked about that. So wind can definitely take on a different, it may say the wind chill may be between 40 and 30, let's say that, and that's high, right? So you're definitely going to want to have a layer on for that. But again, ventilated and resistant sometimes is better than proof, because that heat that gets trapped inside is going to elevate your body temperature, and you're going to start sweating a little bit more. Your body's going to be working harder. So just key factors. We have some really cool gear. New Balance has some really cool gear up in the hub. So if you want to take a chance to go up there before you leave, there's a lot of nice items, specifically stuff that is branded that says at the New York City Marathon 2023. Just saying. And then you also want to think about the rain. We talked about that a little bit. Shoes, we talked about this. Only if you have already trained in the shoe during your training can you trust it, right? No purchasing the brand new shoe day of. Sun protection, again, your sunglasses, potentially a hat, potentially a visor if that works better for you. Now, I don't expect the weather to be freezing cold. It hasn't been as of lately, but considering those that may be training for something in the future and it does get a little chill, you want to consider a hat or some gloves. So keeping it very simple. Because the weather, we definitely don't have any control of it. So you kind of just got to show up, have what you need, and then also be able to part ways with it and say, okay, I know this is going to end up at a good place to someone who can use this in the future, but likely I would say stick with those and you should be okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for pushing the donation part.
Seriously.
So for any folks who may not be familiar, a lot of apparel is discarded throughout the marathon, and all of that apparel is actually donated, as I mentioned earlier, through one of our partners. Coach Ben.
I'm ready. Go.
We did a little poll of the attendees here who are
Yes.
live, and a lot of them are first-time marathon runners.
Which I love.
So how should they be preparing for the marathon? 3 weeks out, what should they be looking out for?
Well, they need to prepare that they're going to PR that day because it's going to be their fastest marathon, right?
And what is PR?
Personal record, personal best. It's your first one. It's going to be your fastest. Always keep that in mind. Keep that positive mindset as you go through. But what was the question again? Sorry. I was so focused on personal
For our
best.
first-time marathon
Yeah.
runners, how should they be preparing 3 weeks out?
Yeah, I mean, again, like we talked about at the top of the show, this is probably your highest volume week. Your longest long run may be coming up this weekend if you're doing a 3-week taper. If you're doing a 2-week taper, maybe you have another high volume week next week. But now is not the time to try to make up anything. Really, you want to get to that start line healthy. That's your best chance to run the race that you've trained for. Why get to a start line of a race that your ankle's hurting or a hamstring or a hip because I did an extra run that I didn't need to do the week before or 2 weeks before? Just really look at it, hey, I'd rather be a little bit undertrained than just a little bit overtrained, because if you're overtrained, that's where injury can come into play, especially because you don't know what you don't know your first time. I mean, we've all been first-time marathoners, and we've all made mistakes, or we've made maybe a judgment call that wasn't the best, like the orange slice, because darn, it was really good at the moment because it was a hot day. But we've all been there. We've all done that. Yeah, look at that. Man, I really want to wear those shoes on a race day. I want some new socks. Those are things you don't want to do. You really want to make sure that you control what you can and put yourself there. I mean, how many times have you been in a start village or a race and the person next to you talking to their friend about, I'm doing my gels at this, 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 and this. And you're like, oh, maybe I should do that. Maybe I'm going to try that strategy. No. You should be looking at what, you probably all chuckle. We've all made that the error. You listen because you're going to hear all those conversations on the ferry, on the bus, sit in the village for 2 hours before you go off on your race. It's a long time to sit there. But those are things you have to take care of. You can take care of what you have and trust what you've done. You need to trust what you've been working on to get to that point and stick to that. And these next 3 weeks are all going to be about putting all the puzzle pieces in place. That's how I look at a marathon training plan. It's a puzzle. When you first started, everything was kind of scattered out on your kitchen table or somewhere, and you've been slowly plugging pieces in to where you want to be. What am I going to wear? What are my shoes? My socks? Do I need body glide? Am I taping this up? Am I covering that up? What do I need wear? Do I want to wear a watch? Do I not want to wear a watch? 2018, I ran the entire marathon without a watch. I had really no idea what my pace was. All I could do was look at the clock and do some quick math. And runners love doing math when they run, right? You're like, there's a number. I don't forget. I don't care. Just keep running. Yeah. But man, it really takes the pressure off because all you're doing is I got to get myself from Staten Island to Central Park. Piece of cake. It really is. Just try sometime.
I'd rather not. But thank you.
Try sometime. But no, that you should be looking at this point like you've done hard work and you've done wonderful things. And the race day will test you. There will be portions where you'll be like, well, why did I pay money to do this? But you did. And you remember what that why was. Never let go of why you started, whether it's for your 50th birthday, right, Frank? There you go. Or for maybe you're doing it because a parent or a grandparent or sibling ran this and now it's your turn. Don't forget your why, because there will be moments out there. And I know some people say the last 10 miles or 6 miles, every mile I dedicate to somebody else. Maybe start laying those things out as well, because you are going to accomplish something. You're going to come up into the park. You're going to see a finish line in front of you with grandstands on both sides, and you're going to see all these numbers and be like, wow, I just covered 26.2 miles in the greatest city in the entire world, and I'm going to cross that finish line, and you're going to feel all the emotion. I sat there the last 3 years at that finish line, and I've watched runners come across, and it is an amazing thing to watch people cross that finish line and all the emotion that they have. I've crossed it 5 times, looking forward to my 6th this year. It never gets old. Take a moment when you come into the park, look around. You'll never be in the same place again. Take the picture in your head, remember it. I remember 2018. It's a beautiful fall day. The leaves were changing. I've never forgotten that. So these next 3 weeks, start thinking about all the things that you want to do, all the things that you can control, what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, what's your night before look like. Get all those things in place. That way you go to bed on Saturday night, feeling good, wake up Sunday morning, hop on that bus, hop on that ferry, get to the fort, and we'll see you there.
That is some really good advice, Coach Ben, and it had not much to do with food.
I can make it that way if you like.
So prepare well and focus on your why. That is what I'm getting from that. And then Jeanne, as a runner, finishes the race. what can the Strava data tell the runner in terms of data and information? For those of us who use Strava, we probably know that it can display pace and finish time, but I'm sure there's more. So tell us.
Yes, there is a lot more. But first, I have to go back to something Coach Ben said and completely disagree with it, because you won't get any of this data if you don't wear a watch during the race.
I know I'm the worst.
So please wear your watch.
Sorry.
Or your phone. Yes, you can record on your phone. But yeah. If you are wearing your watch, then there's a lot that you can kind of dig into after you finish the race. I think there are kind of two different buckets of things that you might want to look at immediately. I mean, let's be real. You don't want to do anything immediately. Please take a few minutes to just walk away from the finish line, sit down, relax, enjoy what you've done. If after, 10, 20 minutes, you're ready to look at the data, there's stuff in your phone that you can see immediately. That's really cool. You can kind of click into your activity and see your pace breakdown mile by mile. So you can see, where you might have been crushing it, feeling really good, where you might have been feeling some other emotions. And I think what's really nice is that there's kind of an overlay of the elevation chart in that pace graph, so that you can see where your pace correlated with whether you were going uphill or downhill. There are some hills in the New York City Marathon. So I think that information is interesting and also can help you learn about, moving forward. Did I see a question? Go ahead. So that one's actually not even paid. You don't have to pay for it. You can click into that pace analysis. It's a mile by mile breakdown. That's free for anyone who uses Strava. And then there is a paid feature that gives you a little bit more information about what percentage of the race you spent in each pace zone. So that is paid. And then you can see 50% of the race I was in my tempo zone, which is blank to blank range. And then 20% of the race I was crushing it. I was in my max effort range. Maybe not that much, but and then something that's a little bit more granular to dig into is actually on your computer. So when you're no longer out and about after the race, but maybe the week after you've had some time to relax and kick your legs up, you can kind of dig into the data on your web. If you go to that activity, there is a race analysis, and that breaks it down by 5K. It's similar to the pace analysis, but it just kind of shows you where exactly your best 5Ks were, just kind of seeing your effort throughout those 5Ks. You can see your heart rate at those times as well. So it's really interesting to kind of know, did I go out a little too hard here? If you ever plan to run another marathon, maybe you can refine your strategy based on some of that data.
And that comes from somebody who's run 5 marathons. So some good advice. Just want to remind folks again, we are going to take questions in just a few minutes. For those folks who are online, Coach Steve is monitoring the chat. Yes, he's giving me a thumbs up, so he's not just sitting there. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat, and we will get to those questions in just a couple of minutes. So share with us some final words of advice that you would like to share with the folks that are here, folks that are online, that are running the 2023 TCS New York City Marathon, whether they're first-time runners or whether this is their 5th or 6th time. And Coach Ben, we will start with you.
Thank you. I think I said it earlier. Have fun. Yes. I can't stress it enough. The people that I work with, you worked hard to get there. Why get there with a grumpy attitude or sullen? Take it in. That's the victory lap, folks. It's 26 miles of you doing something for you. I'm fortunate enough to work with Team for Kids, our in-house charity program that we have. And last night I was telling them, you do so many selfless things to raise money for the programs that we have. That day is yours. Be selfish for that. And I express that with everybody I work with. That's your day. All the work that you've done is the parts of the meals that you don't like. I'm not a big greens guy. I don't like all the vegetables I eat, but I eat them. That was the training. That was the hard days you had to run in August and September, even July when it was hot and humid. That's the payoff. So don't forget all the work that you've done when you get there. That's your time to shine. Trust yourself. Like I said, there may be a rough patch here or there. That's okay. You'll get through it. Get to the next water table. Get to the next traffic light. Get to the next light post, whatever it takes to get to the next step that you have to get going. And as long as you keep going to the next little bit, you've gone just that much closer to the finish line, the medal, stopping having to run again for a while. And enjoy it. Really, take it in and have fun because, again, I joke about you paid to do this. So, don't forget, at one point, you're I have a really good idea. I'm going to go run 26.2 miles and pay for it. That day is 24 days away. 24 days. Thank you, Frank. Who's counting, right? Really, it's, no one here, I'm sure. was like, what, really? But no, 24 days away, folks. But have fun when you're out there because it really is a magical experience. New York does come out to cheer you on. Yes. The only time you won't have a crowd is when you cross a bridge. Every other time, there will be crowds deep, and they bring the energy. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes maybe just kind of put blinders on for a moment. You don't want to kind of go out too fast, as we like to say, especially in Brooklyn. But take it in and enjoy it because, again, first-timers, regardless of how it goes, it's going to be your fastest. And that's what you have to take into consideration and enjoy it.
Thank you. And I agree. New York really is the best city in the world. We may have the best marathon, too. I'm not sure. I might be biased there. But that is some great advice. And New York really does come out and encourage folks and support folks and cheer them on. Random strangers are cheering you on. There's other 50,000 people with you running this race. So it is incredible energy. And we as staff members get to also work the marathon and cheer folks on as well. So let's move on to Atiya. What is your final word of advice?
Well, this won't be some advice, but if you can, look out for me. I'll have my little Brittany mic on, cheering you all on around mile 20 or so. But the main thing I want to incorporate is mindfulness. And if you can set yourself up the night before to really just either do a meditation or just something to allow your thoughts to be easy. A lot of times people get really anxious before, and that anxiety can lead to more bathroom breaks or, a lot of different mental things that can either slow you down or just allow you to feel like you're not having the best time. And if you just remember why you showed up, get back to your breath, because a lot of us don't realize that we're holding our breath a lot of the time. So breathe, please breathe. And if you have to open your mouth to do so, open your mouth a little bit, okay? But more than that, Ben said it the best. Coach, have fun. There's gonna be so much excitement. I get super emotional on the sideline cheering everybody on because I'm typically working this event. Please just allow yourself to be in that moment. Shake off the nerves. Smile at the person that's running next to you. You never know what that does for someone, especially someone that is having a hard time getting through it. Like, just those little moments really push somebody to get through it. And another thing is, don't get discouraged. There may be people that step away from the race. That happens sometimes because they can get injured. But know that, don't let that slow you down. Just kind of keep going, pace yourself, and then rock out and celebrate after. Have some fun, have some good food, and smile. Don't forget to smile, please.
That is some great advice, Atiya. So important to be mindful in the moment, and I really hope that folks take this with them. So if you do have that rough moment or two, right? It's not guaranteed you're going to be smiling the 26.2 miles, but if you kind of hit that bump, then you're like, let me focus on my breath. Let me just be mindful in this moment. And live in this moment, as Coach Ben said earlier. And last but not least, Jeanne, what would you like to share as your final piece of advice?
Okay, I'm last, and I have some intimidating Strava data to share. No, but I won't leave it on this note. But I do think that this one might be intimidating. The next data point I think is great. But this one is 85% of New York City Marathon finishers ran a long run of at least 16 miles, and 60% ran at least 20 miles. So the takeaway for me there is that you actually don't even need to run 20 miles. Like, if you're running 16 miles, that's gonna be good for you to practice that endurance. So I hope that leaves you with some confidence in your training, that you're right there where a lot of the average New York City Marathon runners are, and you're doing great. And then this next bit I think is important to keep in mind in the last few weeks here. Of the fall marathon runners that we analyzed, those who kept their easy runs easy, which means about 30% slower than their goal marathon pace, those folks were more likely to hit their goal pace on race day. So I think that's a really important thing to stress, especially as we're heading into the taper season where you're not training as much and kind of taking those easy days, just really taking them as easy as you can. Like, you have nothing to lose by not pushing yourself hard on the days that are meant for recovery. And then, just on a last, more exciting note, I want to echo what Atiya and Ben both said about, enjoying it while you're out there. I think I have only emphasis to add to everything they said about being in the moment. I think that's great advice. The only thing that I'll add, which is slightly different, is it's a rare opportunity. You don't get to run through the streets of New York every day, like once a year if you're lucky, with this marathon. And even that, it's probably not an every year thing. So yeah, just take the opportunity. Like, you're not out there every day. This is something exciting and rare that you get to do. And yeah, enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that hopeful and encouraging data. So now, folks, we're going to move into Q&A. You can share, once we get to you, if you have questions in the audience, you can share if you're running the marathon for the first time, you've run it before. So we will go ahead and take questions from the audience first, and then we'll move into some questions from the live stream. So Coach Steve is going to come around with the mic.
Hey, thank you. Frank, first-time marathon runner. So I have a very quick Strava question because I'm a fan. And one of the features is you create automatic groups when people are running together. Mm-hmm. Is my New York City Marathon group going to be 50,000 people?
You know, just 50,000 of your closest best friends. What's wrong with that? Yes, we do. We do group runners. If you spend, I think it's more than 60% of a run in the same vicinity. But you can opt out of that if you want to make your account private. You won't get grouped with them. It's a setting. But yeah, that is just a feature that we have because we think it's nice when people are doing a group run with friends, you want it to show up. But yeah, for big races like this, it does tend to get out of hand how many people show up together.
I love it. That's great. Bigger audience, the better. And then for Atia and Coach Ben, more of a strategy gear question. So now I'm actually thinking about the run. And in the beginning, definitely bundle up. I was thinking I would wear something like this jacket that turns into a belt jacket. Mm-hmm. But then I'm also... So the question is, at the end of the run, would I ever want to warm back up? So for example, worst case scenario, suddenly there's a bridge with a massive wind and stuff, but then I thought there's actually not. Or if I get very slow and start walking again, would I get chilled? So can I just ditch it and forget it, or do I want to have something that I can carry through the race?
I would definitely say if you know that you're someone who does get a little more chilly on the chilly side, hold on to it. There are going to be people that toss their layer, and they're just going to have to get through it. But at the end of the race, you'll definitely have some things that are going to be given to you to warm you up. But hold on to it, please. If you know that wind or chill just does affect you, if there's an option for your shorts, some shorts have that little sleeve in the back. You can slide your jacket right through there, tie it on. You should be good to go. Others, again, if you don't have gear already that have those features, you may be out of luck towards the end. If you have a family member that's going to be there, maybe have them have something for you. And then you're also going to get your little blanket at the end, so you should be okay with that. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's spot on because you never know. You never know what the day's going to hold and how you're going to feel. Obviously, depending on when your start time is, and if it is raining, it's not uncommon that you're just going to be kind of wet and damp the whole time. That's not a fun place to be. So holding on to something that you may need later is always a good thing. I know some people like to run with the arm sleeves, and what they do is they push them down. They almost become like little wristbands, and you put them back up again. Yeah, they may be a little bit different when you put them back up because they may have collected some sweat, so they may be cold for a second. But remember, you will warm up. You're gonna warm up about usually. Well, our rule of thumb as a coach is whatever the temperature says. If it's 55, plan for 65 because you're going to get about 10 degrees warmer when you're out there. And obviously, if the sun's going to be out, if it's not an overcast day, it may feel a little bit warmer than that. I like to wear a hat when I run almost all the time, regardless. But you have to it's hard, guys. We get out of the summer months. It's been so hot and humid. All of a sudden, you hit this colder spell. But remember, we kind of know as locals kind of what to expect. If it's going to be 45 and windy or 45 and no wind, is it overcast? Is it not? Kind of how we're feeling up in those days. But hold on to something if you don't need it. But obviously, as Atia said, when the race is over, you will get your poncho. Yeah. And you're going to love that thing. I still have all 5 of mine. I wear them to bed sometimes. I feel good at night. I put them on. I put metal on. I go, 2016, that was a good year. I wrap myself in glory. It's all good, folks.
I was going to say, with 50,000 people in our group, maybe you want a 10-year reunion, but maybe you don't. I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Maybe don't join the group. Coach Steve.
Hello, my name is Stan. It's my first marathon. I'm excited.
Congratulations.
But I have a question I keep thinking about. It's a bit silly, but we are gonna have a few hours before marathon at the other side of the Verrazano Bridge. What do you do then? It's kind of we're not used
I
to
got
that,
a
right?
good one.
You make friends.
Thank you. You make new
Yes,
friends.
make
No,
new
you are
friends.
hanging out for a while. So, I mean, as I'm sure if you come and do the core strategies at the expo, we'll tell you, just sit down. Find something that's not, don't walk. There's no reason to waste energy. You've done too much work. Just go over to whatever wave color you're in, whether it's pink, blue, or orange. Find a place and just kind of sit, just plop down, or maybe you have a book that you want to read,
Yes.
or I'm asking people with the New
I was
York
gonna say
Times
that.
or whatever. Take something to get your mind off of what's going on, or just I used to go and I'd find an area. I'd find some. I used to take cardboard with me on the bus or the ferry. When I get over to Staten Island, I'd find an area where I had the chain link fence. I'd put the stuff down. I'd lean against the fence and just kind of close my eyes. Take a moment. There will be some food on Fort Wadsworth. Bananas and bagels will be there, but bring your breakfast. Bring what you want to eat. You want to keep your fuel source topped off. Mm-hmm. Have those throwaway clothes. If it's going to be a chillier morning, if we're going to be in the 40s when we start, and you're sitting there for 2 or 2.5 hours, you're going to have maybe some old sweatpants, an old pullover that you want to donate that you no longer care about whatever you have, but give that into the donation bins when you're there. But my biggest takeaway I tell runners is just find a place to just be calm. Kind of, I think you talk about it being mindful in that moment, right, Atia?
Yeah, I was gonna say the book suggestion is a game changer. Specifically, get a book that you would not read often, because then you're sitting there and you're like, okay, wait a minute, I got time to actually be in the moment with this book. I'm judging myself a little bit. Let me read it, and then again, you're not gonna run with the book. So you'll be able to pass it off. But yeah, a book is a good option because you're going to want to save your phone battery. So you don't need to be scrolling on Instagram for 2 hours before you start running, because then your battery's dead and you can't find your family. And, what was that about? So yeah, I would say a book is a good option. And I don't know if anyone's running with headphones, but I don't think you're going to need them. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Great job.
If you want to run with music, and that's typically what you do, and your headphones will not fall out. AirPods are such a thing these days, and they are going to disappear if you think that you're going to get away with running with them. But if you do like that, that's up to you. Yeah, you should be fine. if that's something that you do often, yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, you have all the white noise around you. Just
And-
pretend that it's white noise. So we have a question online. Go ahead, Coach Steve.
So, Coach Ben, a lot of runners online are asking what you can bring to the marathon in terms of their own hydration packs. So, fanny packs, waist belts, vests. What can runners bring? Because it's changed this year, so we kind of want to inform them on what we can bring to the race in terms of what we're wearing besides the clothes, obviously.
This is a total new updated thing, and we're this is awesome to hear, because I know a lot, myself included, I was excited when I heard this, but in the past, you've not been able to use anything over the shoulder. No hydration backpacks of any kind. You all had to be attached to your waist or handheld. This year, we had an update to that from direction from our partners at the NYPPD that they are looking at hydration vests with water bottles in the front as an extension of the waist belt. So let's say you're a runner that runs with the vest and you have the water bottles in the front. Totally cool. You can bring those and wear those on race day moving forward at all New York Roadrunner events, starting with the marathon, which I think is fantastic. If you have the bladder that's in the back with the straw, I guess you want to call it, that you can't have the bladder in the back. Those are still not allowed. So if you have the vest with the stuff in the front, great. If your vest has both these and these, make sure that there is no water back here. You can put your cell phone, you can put your gels. Maybe that's where you put the jacket you hold on for later in the race. Maybe you run, just kind of unzip and just shove it down there or wrap around the sides. But you will be able to have over the shoulder in there. And you can shove your food, maybe your breakfast that you need for the 14 hours or for Wadsworth before the race begins. Shove it back there to carry it on through. But that's a great thing this year. You can have the water bottles in the front. Your gels can be in front. So for runners out there that do train with those vests, a lot of people do, because I don't like things in my hands when I run. I like my hands to be free. So I do like the vest. This was a great update, and that's new for this year.
Could you carry a book if you really like the book?
I'm actually running with the Grapes of Wrath this year, and I'm going to have it in the back because I like at least a good 1,000 pages when I'm there. I'm going to be there for 6 hours. I want to really dive into my literary sense and what's better than a classic from Steinbeck, really?
It's a really good workout. So we have a question from the audience here.
Hi, this is Nienke. This is the first time I'm running the marathon, and you've been training up to, let's say, 20 miles. You mentioned to split your marathon in half, so to say, from a tempo perspective. Is there any statistics from a minutes per mile that we should take into account? So let's say that I'm running my 20 miles at 10 minutes per mile. Should I then think about 10-minute 20 to start with and then go to 10 halfway, or looking for more of the
Okay, this is a great
mathematics?
question. I think it is kind of unique for each individual, but I'll also call on Coach Ben for your insight here, and Atia if you would like. But personally, I do think that you can use your 20-mile run as a gauge. So like if you felt really strong with that pace, 10-minute pace for your 20 miles, I think that you can use that. Maybe add, 20 or 30 seconds to that, especially for the beginning, like if you're looking to negative split, just because it is better to be a little conservative and then feel great. Like if you get to halfway and you're like, I don't feel tired, I have so much energy, pick it up, like that's a time to start moving a little quicker. But having run some marathons myself and having seen a lot of data, I think that the 20-mile run is a pretty good indicator of the marathon. I know it feels different. It's like there's a whole 6 miles there, but it is actually a pretty strong indicator.
I always make the joke, I don't want to see 5K PRs, I want to see marathon PRs. And there's 50,000 people that run this race. Granted, they're split into 5 waves, and you're in 3 different start lines, but that's still over 3,000 people per start line per wave. And if you're at the very front of Corral A, great, you've got some open air to run, but you may be in Corral C, D, E, or F. Why waste the energy trying to get around everybody on the Verrazano Bridge or your first mile in Brooklyn? Just relax. Steve and I mean, we've talked about it for years in our core strategies. If someone goes by you at the start of the race, there's probably a couple reasons. A, they're just faster than you, let them go. Or they're going out too fast. Because trust me, that cannon goes off, and if you haven't been before, we have a cannon. We don't have an air horn or a starter pistol. We have a howitzer that sends you across the bridge, and boom, there you go. And you're like, what in the hell was that? But boom, you're off. And talk about an adrenaline rush, but you really got to downshift. So yeah, if you're going to be 20 seconds under, totally fine. You've got 23 more miles to find a minute. And you're going to, again, I think we like to talk about this course because Brooklyn on 4th Ave is very flat. If you look at the course profile, it's a very straight. This should just be like a rhythm. It should feel like a long run. You don't want to be tapping into your fuel sources that soon in the race, because this race course will take all the deposits, and when you go to get a withdrawal, it'll be like, ha ha, no. Sorry, folks, you burned out too much here, you got nothing left. So be patient, and it really is the marathon. It's a patience game.
Yeah.
It really will test the patience, because everything feels good early, but you want to feel good when you see her at mile 20 because the Bronx brings it.
When I tell you, it's a different energy that you're getting here tonight, okay? It's crazy. I'm caffeinated times 12, and I'm screaming to my top of my lungs. I would say listen to your body in that moment. When you think that you want to push yourself a little bit, take it slow in that push, but if you need to dial back, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't allow everybody else around you to influence you to go outside of your comfort zone in that moment. It's funny because for running, you don't want to go outside. Like, you want to stay where you're comfortable because you want to prevent yourself from having any injuries. But in real life, you say nothing ever grows in your comfort zone. So I think it's such a contradiction to say that, but listen to your body.
And I will give a shameless plug to our pace team at this point. Anybody who's looking to run like a certain time, whether 4 hours, 4.5 hours, the NYRR pace team will be out there. All the information is on the website. They'll be at the expo. These people know what they're doing. They run by effort. They will get you to your finish time by what they have on their sign, 30 seconds under that. Let them do the work. All you have to do is follow. So that moment, again, it really keeps you in check. So like you said, there's no reason to go out harder than you have to. If you're with someone on the pace team, even if you're not right next to them, you could be from like me to yourself or to the camera. As long as I can see them, I'm fine. And then throughout the race, you'll get to where you want to be. But our pace team is fantastic. I personally have used them for different races. I am a pacer as well, so I've done it. I've seen both sides. It's a beautiful thing to work with runners and see them finish the race that they want to. So yeah, if you have it out there, always keep that in mind that our pace team will be out there and they will guide you along too.
Awesome. Do we have a question in person? Go right ahead.
Yes, my name is David. I have ran the New York City Marathon in the past, 2018 and 2021. That was my PR. 2020 virtual, 2021 virtual. I'm doing the marathon in a different way. I'm doing it, Jeannie, on Strava in the virtual challenge. I wanted to know, like, if you could let the folks know at home, and especially hear how the challenge works, how the runners could go about starting their distance on Strava and completing their 26.2 miles leading up to the challenge for those at the finish line.
Well, I appreciate this question. It's almost like I planted you in the audience, but I didn't.
You didn't.
And I will add that you might be even more familiar with it than I am if you are part of it. So, the way all challenges work on Strava is that they are virtual. You can search our challenge gallery on Strava, which you can use your phone or the web for, and then join the challenge. And then once you've joined it, there's usually a little description there. It will kind of explain like what the dates are that you need to log your 26.2 run for this occasion, I'm assuming, in between. You just kind of go out when you have time, when you're able to, and get it done. Is that what you're understanding?
No, I know that was just to reiterate to the folks at home about how it works, those that may be confused about it.
Yeah, and so I think it's a great way to be involved if you can't be here in New York, if you aren't able to run the marathon. I know it's hard to get into the New York City Marathon, and so I think it's a great way to still feel some of that magic and get to participate and get a marathon in and maybe get prepped for racing it in person one day.
Awesome, thank you. And we have, I believe, one last question.
So,
Online.
question from Marcos online. It'll be his first New York City Marathon, and he's looking to just get information about how the corrals work. Probably Coach Ben, how do they work? You can move back, can you move forward? What are you looking for in those start villages? I think it's confusing for those new runners. It's such a big city marathon.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, there's 10,000 people per wave, and so depending on the color that you're in, your bib will tell you what color and what corral you're in. So look for the wave number, or the wave letter, and then what corral letter you're going to be in. And in terms of moving forward or back, you obviously cannot go forward. So let's say you are in wave 2, corral C. You can't go up to wave 1, obviously, and you can't go into A and B in wave 2. You have to be in the same one. So if you and your friend are together and you want to run together, you go to the higher letter or higher wave number. So if you're in 3, they're in 4, congratulations, you're now in wave 4, and you go back into that space. As you go into the corrals, you'll have to lift up and show your bib. There'll be volunteers to check that out. Don't give them a hard time. They are volunteers. They're giving up their time to be there, so be polite. Give them a thank you. We always say, see a volunteer, thank a volunteer. Be polite, because again, this is a courtesy to your fellow runners that you're out there running. So make sure you try to put yourself in the best position to have your day, because they're doing the same thing. If you have any questions about your corral at the expo, you can go see our runner services desk. You can beg, plead, Venmo, whatever you need to do. The answer may be no, and that's just how it is sometimes. We can't answer yes to everything, but they'll be as accommodating as they can. And again, be polite, be respectful. End of the day, you're still going to run 26.2 miles. You're going to get the medal. You're going to have a wonderful experience. So just enjoy that. And if you have someone to run with, it's even better. So always go back to where you have to be and just enjoy it.
And sometimes people choose not to run with each other. They just don't want to spend that much time together. We have, I think, one more, Coach Steve.
One more just came through. You may have mentioned it, but there's confusion on the chat. How do you place your bibs if you're wearing many layers at the start line? Do you put your bib on the outer shirt, the undershirt? If it's cold out, how do you kind of plan for your bib on race day?
I guess I'll take it. Pin it to your innermost layer. So if you're wearing your poncho, a sweater vest, your Patagonia, whatever you're wearing, it should be on the innermost. So in this case, I'm wearing like this, and I have my shirt on. It would be here. Because what happens if you toss this out? Where did your bib go? It's gone. And there goes your timing chip. And now you're like, what do I do? I got my Strava. But that may help a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it'll be on the challenge.
That's all you need.
No, that's all you need. You're like,
you need more. You need more.
I didn't say that, folks. No, but always pin on the innermost layer of what you're going to wear. That way, if you do peel off clothes, you will be fine. Obviously, if you go through a timing mat, it still will reheat it, even if you have clothes on top of it. But make sure it's on the innermost layer that you have. Don't pin it on your back. We actually talked to our timing team, and they said it doesn't. The way the chips work and the way our mats work, it has to be on the front. It could be here. It could be here. Don't put it back here. We want to, because plus you want to hear it, because Marathon Photo will be out there taking your picture and how good you look, and that number is how they're going to identify you. So you go look for yourself. It's going to be there. The only tip I give to people is that marathon photo is out there. Know where they are because you want to look good. Race discomfort is temporary. Marathon photo is forever, folks. I got some pictures. I'm like, I look like that when I run.
You see why I told you to smile, right?
I mean, that will scare small kids away from ever doing this thing, folks. But no, really, keep it on the innermost layer because your bib is the number they use for marathon photo. It is your tracking device, so you don't want to obviously lose that when you're out there. But more important, you want it for the finish because you got to get it framed with a medal and all the memories you have.
Great advice. And just want to give a heads up that if you're picking up your bibs with family or friends, just make sure you wear your own bib because that will be traced back to you. You can write your name on the back of it just to help you out. Okay, folks, so we are at time. Thank you so much for being here in person. Thank you to those who are on the live stream. As I said earlier, this recording will be available on YouTube at a later time. There will be closed captioning. Keep in mind that closed captioning is not 100% accurate. So if there's mumbling written down where I'm speaking, that's why. This is the fourth in a 5-part series. We added in 5th session next Thursday at the same exact time. Feel free to join us in person or online. Thank you so much to Coach Steve, Coach Ben, Atia, Jeanne, our staff here at the Run Center, our colleagues who helped us put this together, AJ, who's making sure the recording and the live stream are going well, and to all of you, congratulations, and we will see you in a week or we will see you in 3 weeks. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.